This is going to be part 2 of my guide on how to go from bronze to grandmaster. Again, it doesn't have to be bronze, but that's more of a catchy title. If you're silver, gold, no problem. Same factors apply. Now, just to recap, so in part 1 I went over these 5 points. So point 1 is learn a few characters very well, and then you can branch off from there. Make sure that you practice, develop good muscle memory, learn their abilities, learn their playstyle, their strengths and weaknesses, their matchups, what to do against certain characters or what to do with certain characters on your team, and how they work against certain compositions and within certain compositions. Point 2 is I'd say learn multiple roles well. Again, just for the sake of your team, mostly, but you won't always get to play the role or even the character that you want to play. So you have to learn how to play multiple roles, whether it's DPS, support, vanguard, whatever. At least get good at 2 roles so you can fill for your team, and you're not just a one-trick pony. Point 3 is ability usage, so just make sure it's balanced. You have to have good situational awareness. But in general, don't be too conservative, like you're too scared to use any abilities, because then you're just missing out on so much potential value. Like, you could be doing a little bit more healing, a little bit more damage, but also you want to save certain abilities you have for particular situations, if you need them. For example, like if you're a support player, you want to save some escape abilities in case you get attacked, and the enemy team is just pouncing on you. Point number 4, and yeah, as for point 3, it's also dependent on matchups. But point number 4 is pay attention to your team and the enemy team composition. So build a strategy around that, know what your team is capable of and what they're not capable of, same for the enemy team, and know how your character's abilities can aid your team. For example, let's say you have a Penny Parker and she throws down her spider nest. If you're a Winter Soldier, maybe try to use your hook to pull the opponents into the spider nest, because that hook has a pretty decent range. So that's just a little thing you could learn. Just good synergy between the characters. And then obviously if you're playing against that kind of team composition, you want to know that the enemy team could also do that to you. Point 5 would just be to track ultimates and don't waste ultimates. I think that's probably, like, I don't really need to elaborate on that. Like, just the number one thing, again, that I saw at lower ranks when I was getting my way to Grandmaster is we've already won the team fight. It's a 3 or 2v6. Obviously, we're going to win. And someone just needs to pop their ultimate to finish off the last 2 characters, even though they were going to die anyways. And you know what? In fact, it would be better to kill them later, because that means the enemy team is, like, yeah, they have 10 seconds and then they respawn. But then we killed their last 2 teammates with a delayed timing. So they need to wait even longer, and they're staggering. So actually just instantly killing them as fast as possible is not even necessarily the best thing to do. If you could let 1 or 2 enemies survive a little bit longer, depending on the situation, right? If they're stalling and they're making like a strange portal, then that's when you want to kill them as fast as possible, and it's like overtime. But otherwise, it's good to actually make them stall a little bit or stagger a little bit. But yeah, for example, like these 2 guys are left on the enemy team, and I just want to get like a TikTok reel highlight. I'm thinking about the aura edits. Don't waste your ultimate on that. It's stupid, and you won't get that ultimate back for several more team fights. And Iron Man's ultimate, yeah, in the higher ranks, it's kind of a problem. It's really hard to land that. But like, let's say you have really good team synergy and you're just popping off as Iron Man. That ultimate could be the difference between winning or losing a team fight. So don't waste it on a fight that's already won. That's like the number one way I'll see people waste their ultimates completely in the lower ranks. Also with support ultimates, sometimes sometimes the team fight is completely lost. Like it's a 2v6, and we've already captured like 90% of the point. The other team has captured like 10%, and they're still going to pop the ultimate, even though it's a 2v6, and we have plenty of time to walk back. And now we don't have that support ultimate. Like, yeah, it's going to keep our guys alive a little bit longer, but they're going to die anyways because there's so much time for our team to get back. And then, yeah, we're just staggering again. Oh, yeah, staggering. Maybe that's another point I should have added. So, for example, let's say my entire team has died, okay? You'll see this a lot with Thing players. Thing players will just completely turbo feed. But again, in the lower ranks, like, I don't know, maybe platinum and below. I mean, I've even seen this in diamond. Like, we have 3 characters who have respawned. Our other teammates are still dead. And the Vanguard player is going to run up to the enemy team by himself, and he's just going to die. So what's better to do is wait for all your teammates to respawn, have them regroup, and then attack the enemy together. Don't just rush towards the enemy as soon as you respawn and then just instantly die and feed, because that means the team has to wait even longer to regroup. So again, I see this so much, especially in the lower ranks, just constant staggering. As soon as someone dies, they want to rush right into the action, and then they just, get melted, and then they're just turbo feeding over and over. And you can never actually regroup and attack the enemy together. And that's why you're not winning any team fights. So that's a very important concept to understand. And yeah, especially in quick play, people just do not grasp this concept at all. Like, even if my entire team is dead, you'll have Vanguard players who just rush to the front just by themselves, and then they're doing whatever, and then they're just going to die. They just rush in 1v6 and die and just feed over and over. So yeah, definitely do not do that. Now, the next point I'll say is, well, yeah, I guess knowing how to use your ultimates when you're attacking versus when you're defending, but also just knowing how to make different team compositions depending on if you're attacking or defending. Like, just for example, just to understand in general, if you're defending, your win condition, like let's say it's a point like the Dracula's Castle map, whatever it's called. I genuinely forgot what it's called, but like let's take the Dracula Vampire Castle map. If you're defending, your win condition is simply not letting the other team capture the point. So if the other team, even if they're winning most of the team fights, but they can't progress forward, you still win. You don't have to kill the enemy team. All you have to do is survive and hold the point. So maybe you can focus more on just defense and sustain. You don't necessarily need so much damage. I mean, obviously, killing the enemy team is one way to win, but you simply need to survive as long as possible and hold the point as long as possible. Now, obviously, having too much sustain and not enough damage is a problem in and of itself, but you understand what I'm saying. Now, if you're attacking, yes, I mean, for any team composition, you need to stay alive. Like, you can't just do solo heal or something, for the most part. Unless you're way better than the enemy team, then in that case, every composition works. But yeah, if you're attacking, you're going to need more damage, because you necessarily have to kill the other team if you're on the attacking side. So rather than focusing on like the defensive characters or characters like getting more supports, you want to focus on getting as much damage as possible. Well, again, you can't neglect having a Vanguard or a strategist, excuse me, but you have to deal a lot of damage to break through the enemy defense. Your goal is not to survive, because if you simply survive and have a super drawn out team fight, well, then the team, or like the time is just going to run down and you're not going to capture the point. So that's also another dynamic you need to understand. Like, let's say for example, my team is attacking. I don't know why I just did that, but let's say my team is attacking and the team fight is really long, no one's dying. It's like, yes, we're keeping our team alive, but the enemy team is also not dying. Maybe instead of having 3 supports, it's time to switch to another DPS character to get more damage. Or maybe instead of 2 Vanguards, we only need 1 Vanguard and we need an extra DPS, because we need that much more damage to break through the enemy's defense. Does that make sense? So yeah, that's something to understand. Now, another thing, this sort of speaks for itself, having good map knowledge. So knowing which points are inherently more difficult to defend or attack on, knowing where the health packs are, knowing the different routes, especially if you're a flanker or a dive character, whatever, high mobility character. I mean, really any character. Just knowing how to navigate around the map and finding the most ideal routes is always very beneficial. So make sure you remember that and keep that in mind. Oh man, this point is super important, and yeah, this could be like a 2-hour video just by itself, but positioning is super important. So positioning will work differently depending on your role. If, like, for example, I don't know, if you're a Star Lord, for example, for the most part, you don't want to be hanging around in the back with your supports. And if you're just staying like next to your tanks and doing damage to the enemy team, you're not really going to get as much potential as you could have. I mean, with Star-Lord, like what makes him really stand out is his mobility, right? So you want to be finding, like for example, if my team's right here fighting the enemy team, maybe I want to take a different angle, attack the team from, or attack the enemy team from a different angle, or maybe flank behind them, harass their supports. But yes, since I have this huge advantage of being one of the fastest characters in the game, you really need to take advantage of that. And yeah, obviously you don't want to be frontlining with this character, and you don't want to be all the way back. Like you have to be like short to medium range, and you want to be really creative with your positioning. Whereas like obviously if you're a Vanguard, like I think Vanguard positioning is actually kind of the easiest, to be honest. I mean, you just want to create space for your team. Like make sure they can move forward onto the point. You're the one who's like leading the charge pretty much. But also like as a Vanguard player, you don't want to overextend. You should look behind you to see if you're in the line of sight of your healers, and yeah, you want to make sure you actually have some support from your team. Like your team could help you at all times. Because if you're just isolated, like even if you're a super tanky character, you will just get melted. So but be aware of the positioning of your team, and also you do want to be in the front. You want to make sure you're not too passive, but not overextending. Make sure you can just create enough distance for your team. And also, one thing I'll see with Vanguard players, like I mean, I do play Vanguard, but I don't really like. I try not to main any role. I usually play support, but I could also play Vanguard. But one thing you'll see, especially in the lower ranks, like what's a good example? Let's say this guy is the cart. Your shield is limited. You want to save your shield for when you have to use it. What I'll see with a lot of players is rather than sitting, like assuming there's no one contesting the cart, instead of sitting behind the cart and using cover and letting the cart just march forward, they stand in front of the cart and they just try to soak up as much damage as possible. Well, guess what? Once they destroy your shield, when you're actually in a battle and you need to use that shield or you need to retreat, you're not going to have it. And the more damage that you're taking, like yes, your supports are building their ultimates, but it's better to not take unnecessary damage, because once your opponent puts more pressure on you, you're going to have like a lower chance of surviving. If your shield is broken and you're on like low HP, and then the enemy team suddenly pushes forward, well then you're kind of screwed. So again, it's better to just use cover, stay behind the cart, let it walk forward, and then yeah, if someone's contesting the cart, you have to go deal with them and do whatever you have to do. I mean, there's so much you can go into with positioning, and then yeah, even for supports, it's a unique positioning. It even depends on the character. Like for example, I don't know, if you're Invisible Woman, you don't want to be all the way back. Like if I'm right behind this guy, I can damage the enemy and also heal at the same time, and you'll really get the most value when this projectile can go through as many characters as possible, whether they're like friendly characters or enemy characters. Because see, here I'm doing a bit of damage, a bit of healing, but if I was standing like all the way back, I can only just do a little bit of healing, if that makes sense. It does completely depend on the character. Now, whereas if you're playing Rocket, like Rocket, you can sit really far behind because this doesn't do any damage to the enemies. Rocket, you can just play him like a heal bot. Like you can play him super far behind and just spam these projectiles, just making sure you're not a stationary target, and then yeah, throw this down, whatever. But yeah, it's a unique positioning. You have to learn that specific to the character. I don't know how long this recording has been. Maybe, yeah, I'll just leave it at that, and then I'll make one more video for part 3. So yeah, in this video, just I went over the basic points, and then using ultimates, attack versus defense, map knowledge, positioning, and then yeah, 3 more points to cover in the next videos. We'll see how it goes.